All the ice in my drink melted because you took so long taking your fucking heroin.
Be killed. Like,
Okay. Kindle. I can feel the crab rangoon stirring in my guts already. Okay, what happened last time?
um, about how it started.
It started with them in the kiln with White No Face, and he was putting the mask on him.
Right.
And then what happened?
And then Hua Chung's statue of Shilian, this ginormous statue. Shilian used his spiritual energy that he got from Hua Chung
Yes.
and made him start moving and squish White No Face and then help him get out of there.
Yeah,
And
it
then
like
when they
punched
got
a
out,
wall through the
yeah,
punched
yeah.
through the wall.
And then when he got out, he reunited with Hua Chung
Oh, buddy.
romantically.
Yeah, he was like, I was gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, because they're lovers.
Because they're lovers.
Um,
And then he was super supportive, and he's like, with me by your side, you can do anything,
yeah,
etc.,
yeah,
etc., and so forth.
etc. And then Volcano.
Volcano, yes.
Um, so that's fun. So they ran on Giant Shilian with Giant Shilian, and then he tripped.
Yep.
And then they had to make out a little bit more.
So you get more spiritual power, yes.
Right, of course. And then they ran into the gang.
Yeah, they went
Literally
back for the gang. They
everyone.
went back for the gang.
Yeah. Literally everyone.
Yeah.
And picked them up.
And he tried to pull out a sword, but there was no sword because he
Right,
didn't
there was
carve
no
a sword.
sword.
And Hua Chang was
Why
so
would he carve
sorry.
it?
He was like, I'll do it. I'll carve a sword next
felt
time.
so bad. It's like, oh my god, I should kill myself.
And Mount Tonglu, they're worried. There's a bunch of spirits of Wu Yang. All the spirits of Wu Yang are coming out of the kiln, and they're worried that they're going to get out of Mount Tonglu, but it has a barrier around
It
it.
has a barrier. And,
But Hua Chang said that it was broken.
There's no more.
And when they were in the kiln, Shilian asked White No Face if he was the Prince of Wu Yang, and he kind of hesitated. So, all right. So, where should I pick that up? Although his hands trembled, still Shilian said, Mount Tonglu has a barrier. Nothing outside can get in, and nothing inside can get out. Those vengeful spirits shouldn't be able to escape for now. Yet Hua Cheng grabbed his hand before he could finish speaking. Shilian's heart tensed at the gesture, and he quickly clutched Hua Cheng's hand back. What is it? Did I drain too much? Sorry. I should have been more careful to conserve it. That's not it, Hua Cheng said, covering his right eye with one hand. Gaga, you don't have to worry about that. It's Mount Tonglu's barrier. It's been broken. What? Shilian asked, stunned. Broken? He'd only just said that they didn't need to worry because of the barrier. What the heck? Broken, Hua Cheng confirmed. White No Face probably did it. Those things are about to get outside. Hold on, let me sit up a little. Alright. Chapter 106. If the vengeful spirits made it outside, wouldn't that unleash a third epidemic of human face disease? We have to find a way to stop them, Shilian cried out urgently. Perched on the statue's shoulder below, Mu Qing's black robes and hair were thoroughly mussed and wind-swept. But how? The giant stone statue abruptly stopped, rousing clouds of dust and sand. Everyone, hold your breath! The flying black smoke that was hot on their trail had finally caught up. The giant stone statue raised a hand and struck, and wind generated by the blow shook the heavens and quaked the earth. If it had been lower to the ground, the gale would have been uprooted centuries-old trees. Although some of the black smoke was broken up and blown away, Shilian still couldn't help but think, if only I had a sword. Gaga, Huacheng said, sounding like he could tell that what Shilian was thinking. There's a way to get a sword. How? Shilian replied eagerly. We'll have to see if your heavenly colleagues down there are willing. If you've got an idea, just say it. Stop dragging it out and feeding him your bullshit, Fengshen said. Shilian had pretty much guessed what Huacheng was implying, however. Are you saying that we should have General Pei and the others come together and transform into a sword? That's right, Huacheng said. Heavenly officials...
What is this, Voltron?
Hold on, let me drink.
Holy shit. This is what I've been waiting for.
This is the squad.
Ow, what? Say it.
That's right, Huacheng said. Heavenly officials' powers are restricted in Mount Tonglu territory, but there are several martial gods here. If 4 of them transform into one spirit body and work in unison, their might should be considerable. Pei Ming was the first to respond. I think it's doable. Is it really? Mu Qing was still doubtful. How many martial gods do we have? 3, right? Pei Shu and Yin Yu's powers were completely gone, and the Rainmaster wasn't a martial god. The only ones who could come together were Pei Ming, Fengshen, and Mu Qing. No, there are 4. Qi Ying is here too, Pei Ming replied. Huh? Yin Yu hesitated for a moment. With one hand still holding Geze, the other dug out a Bu Dao Wang doll. Before the seal was released, the doll unexpectedly began to shake wildly and shriek at an ear-piercing volume. The awful noise forced everyone to cover their ears. Yin Yu hastily sealed the doll anew, digging out a different Bu Dao Wang as he nervously explained himself. Sorry about that. I grabbed the wrong one. That was the green ghost Qi Rong. This is the right doll.
Right, of course.
He tossed the Bu Dao Wang in the air and exploded into red smoke. A young man appeared within the mist, then plummeted towards the ground. The giant divine statue lifted a hand to catch him, and the young man flipped upright and landed steadily in its palm. He scratched beneath his bloody curls as he looked up, confused at the sight of the large group of people. Although Yin Yu had snuck behind someone's back to hide, Xuan Yizhen discovered him straight away and leapt to his feet with a joyous cry. Shishong! Xuan Yizhen came bounding over. The mere sight of his face gave Yin Yu a headache. He'd rather listen to Qi Rong shriek for 3 days and 3 nights than speak one more word to Xuan Yizhen. Fortunately, Pei Ming snatched Xuan Yizhen away. Come. Time to get to work, Qi Ying. Have your reunion after we're done. Xuan Yizhen was profoundly confused. He was already biased against Pei Ming and seemed ready to punch him in the face. But then he looked up and saw Shilian atop the statue. Shilian's hands were pressed together in prayer, offering a sincere plea to Xuan Yizhen. Please and thank you, Qi Ying. While he still had no idea what was going on, he scratched his head and joined the ranks. Mu Qing certainly had an opinion about becoming a sword for another martial god, but he couldn't just say he wouldn't do it now that they'd managed to put together a group of 4. He stayed silent. The 4 of them formed a line upon the divine statue's palm. Pei Ming, then Fengshen, then Xuan Yizhen, and then Mu Qing. Huacheng propped an elbow on the edge of the jade crown and glanced down. Aren't those last 2 reversed? He commented. Logically, ordering them Pei Ming, Fengshen, Mu Qing, Xuan Yizhen would make more sense, because Xuan Yizhen's spiritual powers weren't as stable as the others. If the sword was swung too aggressively while he was positioned in the middle, it might snap in half. No, they're not, Shilian replied, wiping sweat from his face. Fengshen and Mu Qing can't be next to each other. They might start fighting halfway through a swing. We need someone in between to separate them. Huacheng quirked his brows at that. His expression seemed to say, Please let them beat each other to death. That'd be great. When they looked down again, spiritual light had begun to shine from the four's bodies. It shone stronger and stronger, spreading out until the four had merged into one. Finally, they became a sword of spiritual light. The moment the sword took shape, the giant stone statue tossed it into the air, then reached up and grabbed it. With a sharp sword in hand, Shilian was like a tiger given wings, and his might increasing exponentially as he struck. The vengeful spirits trailed black smoke in long tails and screeched as the sword of spiritual light slashed down, then were abruptly silenced. Riding the tailwinds of victory, Shilian's sword danced like a wild shower of petals, slicing and shattering millions of ghosts to pieces, like the wind blowing clouds into wisps. Wherever the blade swept, it was like fireworks exploding in the sky, beautiful to behold. The nefarious creatures down below were stupefied by the display, and only when the 1,000-ton boots of the giant stone statue came stomping nearby did they remember to flee. As Shilian was engrossed in his sword work, the giant stone statue stumbled forward, almost falling. Shilian hastily used the sword to catch its fall and steady it. "Your Highness, what's going on?" asked the martial gods who made up the sword array. "Keep fighting, they're gathering again." After controlling the giant stone statue for so long, Shilian was getting tired. Sweat dripped down his face, and tension had seized his mind. "It's nothing, It was just that he'd burned up all of his spiritual power he had, that's all." He whipped his head around. Hua Cheng was standing so close behind him, like he was about to reach out. Shilian stopped caring about anything else and went right for it. He pounced on Hua Cheng, cupped his cheeks with his hands, and then getting up on his toes slightly to reach, he closed his eyes and pressed their lips together. ... said Feng Xin, ... said Mu Qing, ... question mark, said Xuan Yizhen. Ho ho, said Pei Ming.
Of course. Of course.
I've been waiting for that.
What the fuck? They can speak as a sword?
Yes, they were just talking.
I know, but I'm just like...
They might be in an array. They might be in a communication array.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. God.
Ho ho, said Pei Ming. But it wasn't enough. Since they were already in that position, Shilian thought he might as well take a bit more. He wound his arms tightly around Hua Cheng's neck to deepen the kiss.
No way.
All the fatigue he'd been feeling was swept away in an instant as his body was refilled with spiritual power. The enormous sword of spiritual light in the giant stone statue's grip clamored with riotous noise. "What is this?" Feng Xin cried, clearly shaken. "What are you two doing, Your Highness?" Shilian choked. Only then did he break away. He didn't dare look down. "I'm borrowing spiritual power," he shouted to the sky. "I'm just borrowing his spiritual power. It's all very proper." Mu Qing was shaken too. "You don't need to do that to borrow spiritual power, though. Couldn't you just slap your palms together?" "Ha ha ha, you saw through me," Shilian babbled. He didn't even know what he was saying. "So maybe it's not just to borrow spiritual power. Ha ha." Seeing him like this made Hua Cheng join his laughter. He cupped Shilian's face with his hands to guide him back, then leaned down and dropped a kiss on his forehead. "Don't be nervous, Gaga," he said gently.
Throw up and kill myself.
Strange as it was, this returned Shilian to normal. He pretended he hadn't heard Feng Xin and Mu Qing, and grew solemn, forming hand seals once more. The giant stone statue pulled the sword of spiritual light from the ground and started slashing and cutting wildly like its strength was inexhaustible. Xuan Yizhen was suddenly filled with awe and respect. So he really was borrowing spiritual power just now. He got stronger so fast. "Complete bullshit! What do you know?" Mu Qing couldn't help but exclaim, but he quickly stopped himself and forcibly changed his tune, likely deciding there was no need to explain to a man-child like Xuan Yizhen. Yes, that's right, he was borrowing spiritual power. Pei Ming laughed heartily. "That's right indeed. But you can't borrow spiritual power like that so casually. Understand, Qi Ying?" Feng Xin gaped. "What are you all saying? Do you actually believe him?" Although the statue's might had increased, they had no giant net with which to capture the vengeful spirits, and they enveloped the entire sky. Upon seeing the power of the massive god, the spirits began to flee, flapping their tails as if they were oversized tadpoles with human faces. "After them!" Shilian cried. He had only managed a few steps before the giant stone statue slumped over and fell to one side. There was no warning, and no reason for this to happen. Shilian had taken plenty of spiritual power just a moment ago, and it was in excellent form. As he felt them fall, Shilian looked down and noticed a massive hole in the divine statue's leg. Shattered rock fell from the wound, then a figure in white fluttered from it, landing languidly on the ground, and vanished in the blink of an eye, as elusive as a ghost, leaving no trace. It was White No-Face. He had broken the leg of the divine statue with his bare hands. With an enormous crash, the giant stone statue fell to the ground. Fortunately, the statue's passengers were not ordinary folk. They reacted quickly, leaping off and landing safely. Shilian and Hua Cheng leapt back onto the divine statue's chest. Shilian tried commanding it back up, but it struggled greatly. The giant divine statue sprawled on the ground and writhed with ponderous misery. "How is it? Can it still stand?" asked Mu Qing from within the sword array. "Did the power run out again?" Xuanzhen asked. "Do you need to borrow more?" "No, this isn't a question of spiritual power," Pei Ming said. "And Shi Ying, there's no need to remember any of that. Forget it completely." "It's probably severely injured," Shilian said. "It shouldn't move again." While Rox felt no pain, the injured leg would probably fall off completely if they forced the statue to stand and fight. It wasn't just that its attack power was drastically reduced, but this was Hua Cheng's most heartfelt masterpiece, and Shilian's favorite divine statue. It had hurt him to see it destroyed like that. Seeing that their enemy had collapsed, the vengeful spirits in the air danced wildly with mad joy and scattered. Were they just going to watch while these creatures escaped to the outside? Shilian glanced over and saw dark anger on Hua Cheng's face. Anger towards White No-Face. He hummed for a moment, then spoke. "Gaga." Just then, a ray of dazzling light peeked through the dense, thick black clouds like some shining radiance had appeared above them. Soon after, they saw a second ray, then a third, then a fourth. Countless rays of dazzling light shot down, penetrating the gloomy clouds and piercing the vengeful spirits. This white spiritual light, strong enough to blind, was a familiar sight to the heavenly officials present. After all, it was the very aura that endlessly shone upon the heavenly capital. Junwu had arrived. That's the end of that chapter. Do you want to keep going? I can't hear you.
I need... How long's the other one? The next one?
Let me look. There's a point we could... Yeah, it's not that long. Yeah, it's not that long.
Okay. And we'll do it, and then I'll heat up food.
And then we'll pit babe.
And then we'll pit babe.
Chapter 107. White Emperor comments on the mysterious state preceptor. The endless legions of vengeful spirits dispersed and dissipated under the powerful glare of that spiritual light. A martial god clad in white armor broke through the clouds with sword in hand. It was indeed Junwu. When the group saw him, it was as if they'd seen their parents reborn or their savior. They all cried,
Jesus.
"Ah, my lord!" with tears practically streaming down their faces. Each of Junwu's steps radiated glory as he languidly descended to earth. "Remain calm. Do not panic. Is everyone all right?" The four within the sword array quickly disassembled and returned to their original forms. "My lord, shouldn't you be guarding the heavenly capital? Why have you come personally?" Pei Ming asked. "Lord Rainmaster informed me through the communication array that Mount Tonglu's barrier had been broken. The circumstances are dire, and so I have come," Junwu replied. Everyone looked over at the Rainmaster, still riding atop the black ox. So that's what happened, they all thought at once. Since the barrier had broken, communication spells must be functional again. But blood had rushed to their heads earlier, their minds filled with nothing but destroying the vengeful spirits. No one else had thought to attempt communication through the array. Shilian took a step forward. "My lord, it's White No-Face. He's returned." Junwu nodded faintly. "I assumed he would be relentless." He's very elusive, Shilian said. Now that you've come, we don't know where he's hidden himself. No matter, Junwu replied. Let us settle the vengeful spirits before we seek him out. Everyone looked to the sky. The rolling black clouds were being purified by the powerful light Junwu had brought forth. So, you've stopped the birth of a new ghost king, right? Pei Ming said. I guess so, Shilian said. After all, nothing broke through the kiln besides this. Everyone's eyes moved to look in unison. The giant divine statue was still lying obediently on the ground where it was left, and when Shilian stopped controlling it. Now that it had fallen down, the gigantic, exquisitely sculpted thing looked like a small mountain in its own right. Let me drink. Shilian stood near it and raised a hand to pet its cheek, then turned to Hua Cheng. Sunlong, what should we do with it? Hua Cheng seemed deep in thought, but he snapped out of it when he heard the question. There's no need for Guga to worry, he replied. Let's leave it here until I can repair it. Can it be fixed? Shilian asked. Of course. As long as the kiln can be sourced for stone, Hua Cheng replied. I'll mend it and make it stand once again. Then let's leave it for now, Shilian said. The volcano is still erupting, and who knows when it'll be safe again. Just then, the vengeful spirits in the air shrieked as one, like they were swirling like a tornado, which then flew off into the distance. They couldn't tell what had triggered this change until they looked closer at where the spirits had gone. The underground holy temple of Wu Yong. The creatures would have been dispersed sooner or later, with nowhere to hide from the powerful rays, but so many vengeful spirits had poured into the underground temple, it was like the sky had been sucked clean. The spirits had vanished completely. Mu Qing was dumbfounded. What happened? It's White No-Face, Shilian cried, his dread growing. He drew a teleportation array and sent the vengeful spirits somewhere. With a sweep of his hand, Junwu threw off the temple's roof. A large chunk of ground was peeled away as well. There was nothing inside except an enormous, freshly drawn array. What is he planning? Function exclaimed. Where's the array connected to? Where did he send them? In the past, this would be where Ling Wen entered the picture. In less than half an instant's time, the palace of Ling Wen would have reported the location of every connecting point. But no one knew which civil gods had temporarily taken over the position, and not a single one of them could be found at this critical time. Fuck, Function cursed in outrage. They usually hype themselves up to the rest of the heavens, fighting for a chance to show off. Well, now's their opportunity, but where the hell are they? I'll never say the palace of Lingwen is inefficient ever again. The royal capital, Hua Cheng said suddenly. Everyone turned to him just as he let two long, slender fingers drop from his temple. He sent those creatures to several different cities. Only the royal capital is a confirmed target thus far. The evil chi in that area spiked suddenly. So, the civil gods of the upper court were useless, and these heavenly officials had to rely on the head honcho of the ghost realm to locate the escaped evil beings. Many of them couldn't help but feel ashamed, but the situation was dire enough that their shame dispersed pretty quickly. We know exactly what the White Cloth Calamity is planning. He's purposely sending those creatures to the most heavily populated places, Mu Qing said. The royal capital is the most populated of all, so an outbreak of human face disease would spread quickly. He obviously wouldn't pass it up. Let's take care of this quickly, Pei Ming cut in. There's no time to waste. Things will get ugly if we delay for too long. The gods serving as temporary substitutes in the palace of Lingwen were also a headache for Junwu, who had been rendered speechless. He turned to Hua Cheng. Has our good sir determined where else they were sent? I'm searching now. It won't take long. Yin Yu, you take over, Hua Cheng commanded. Yes, sir, Yin Yu quickly acknowledged. Junwu was the one who banished him all those years ago. Although he had only been doing his duty, Yin Yu still couldn't help but feel nervous in his presence. After taking a moment to contact his subordinates in Ghost City, Yin Yu meticulously reported the general directions of each sighting. South 150 kilometers, north 135 kilometers. Junwu turned to Function. Nanyang, you search the south. Function hesitated for a moment, not immediately heeding the order. Shilian assumed it was because he wanted to search for Jianlan and Suoso. He was just about to speak up when Function confirmed the order and walked away to draw an array for himself. "I'll take the north," Pei-Ming spoke up knowingly. "Naturally," Shunwu replied. Pei-Ming nodded, then turned and walked away. Pei Shu quickly followed, but Pei-Ming turned to look at him. "You're still injured, and the poison hasn't been cleared out of your system. Stay with Lord Rainmaster for now." Pei Shu was puzzled.
Still a human.
"General,
Go
I'm not
home.
poisoned?" Pei-Ming patted his shoulder sympathetically. "Your broken speech hasn't even healed, and you say you're not poisoned? Remember he got fucking poisoned by Shilian's food?"
Yeah.
Before he left on his own, he gave a curt nod to the Rainmaster, who returned the courtesy. "Qi-Ying, why don't you go to the Western Territories?" Junwu continued. "Remember not to cause—" "Why am I going to the West?" Xuan Yizhen asked, confused. "What exactly are we doing right now?" It was somewhat understandable that he hadn't kept up with what was happening, but he'd probably been totally confused this entire time. Why did he get beaten up? Why was he buried inside a wall? Why did he get turned into a Budao Wang doll? Why did they want him to turn into a sword now? At no point during all of this had he figured out what was going on. Seeing this, Yin Yu sighed. "I'll take him. I'll explain on the way." There was probably no one else with the patience to tell him anyway. "Okay," Xuan Yuzhen said enthusiastically. Although he waited and waited, Mu Qing's turn never came, and he couldn't help but ask, "My lord, what about me?" Xunwu looked over. "Xuanzhen, have you forgotten something?" "What?" he asked in confusion. "You are currently under detention," Xunwu said. Mu Qing's face quickly fell. He really had forgotten about that. And not just him, almost everyone had forgotten that he had escaped the upper court. He was suspected of creating the fetus spirit using wicked spells, and that suspicion hadn't yet been cleared. "You do not have to get involved. Return to the upper court. Your confinement will be reinstated." "My lord, it really wasn't me!" Mu Qing cried. "Once we get to the bottom of this affair and the truth is revealed, you will naturally be released," Junwu said. "It would be a blatant disregard of protocol if I did so now without reason." Although Mu Qing clearly couldn't stand it, there was nothing he could do except quietly acknowledge the order. "Yes, sir." Seeing Mu Qing so thoroughly beaten down and dispirited made Hua Cheng laugh unabashedly. Mu Qing shot him a look, then glanced at Shilian beside him. Although Shilian had no idea what he was thinking, his face was growing darker by the minute. As for the rest, the Rainmaster was not a martial god, so she didn't try to act tough. She simply made it clear that they should call for her if there was any need for her assistance, then left silently. Shilian naturally chose the royal capital, which was the most populous and the most difficult to deal with. As for Junwu, he would stay behind and face the 3 mountain spirits, and possibly White No-Face, who could still be lurking nearby. Hua Cheng tossed his dice to open the teleportation array, and he and Shilian left together. Let me drink.
With my Shayla.
Poor Mu Qing. And Shilian just let Hua Cheng laugh at his face. felt bad.
He give him a break.
Give him a break.
He doesn't feel useful, and then you put him on.
Put him on blast.
You grounded him.
Yeah, grounded him. Grounded him for suspecting that he made an evil fetus spirit in order to ascend to the heavens, like he couldn't do it on his own.
Like, that's crazy.
Poor guy. It was already late night in the royal capital, and the streets were quiet. The houses were equally silent and had their windows and doors shut tight. Shilian and Hua Cheng emerged from one of the alleyways and started walking swiftly, searching for traces of nefarious creatures. After a few steps, Shilian raised 2 fingers and pressed them against his temple, activating the communication array. "My lord," he whispered. "What is it, Shenle?" Xunwu answered. "Have you reached the royal capital?" "We've arrived, but I want to discuss something with you," Shilian said. "Did Crimson Rainsought Flower do something to you?" Xunwu asked. Hua Cheng seemed to sense something and cocked an eyebrow at Shilian. "No, he hasn't done anything to me. It's something else. The situation earlier was too urgent, and I didn't have a chance to speak." Shilian's tone turned serious. My lord, do you still remember my master? At the mention of that particular individual, Junwu seemed slightly taken aback. A moment later, he replied, Do you mean the state preceptor of Shenle? Yes, Shilian said. You must have had a lot of contact with him in the past. Did you ever notice anything odd about him? All ceremonies and services in the kingdom of Shenle were conducted by the state preceptor. He was the bridge that connected mortals to the gods. After a moment of silence, Jinwu replied, Yes. Shilian held his breath. How was he odd? Shenle, are you certain you want to hear this? Jinwu asked. Yes.
He's a faggot.
Even if it disappoints you? Shilian glanced at Hua Cheng. Yes. It was a good while before Jinwu slowly began to speak. That master of yours, serving as the state preceptor of Shenle, was a gross underuse of his talents. His knowledge and skills are far beyond your imagination. Shilian listened quietly. The next words made his heart sink. I believe that the state preceptor and I have spent, at minimum, an equal number of years in this world. He has perhaps spent far more, Jinwu continued. A part of Shilian's conjecture had been verified. If the state preceptor had truly been alive for longer than Jinwu, then it was even more likely that he was one of the 4 guardians of the crown prince of Wuyang. Why did you never tell me this before? Shilian couldn't help but ask. Because for a long time I could not be sure, Jinwu said. Then how did you confirm it? After Shenle fell, I found him and neutralized him. But it seems he still escaped in the end. It was a staggering idea that someone other than White No-Face could escape Jinwu's grasp. Shilian had always assumed that the state preceptor had fled during the chaos of the war. He could have never imagined it was because of Jinwu. It was because Jinwu had personally set out to finish him. Then why did you need to neutralize him? Shilian asked. And why didn't you tell me once you knew? Your 2 questions are actually the same, Jinwu said. What? I mentioned that you may be disappointed when you hear this, Jinwu said. But perhaps you can now endure the feeling of being disappointed in another person. Shilian's heart pounded faster and faster, and he unconsciously clutched one of Hua Cheng's hands tight. Hua Cheng's other hand rose to cover the back of his own. It was because I discovered, Shunwu said, that he wanted to awaken something within you. And that's the end of the chapter.
Like homosexuality?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, this is gay awakening?
Yeah. Oh, we're getting so close to a part that I really want to get to.
I can't believe they turned into
Voltron.
that was insane.
That was awesome. And then they made out in front of them, and then everyone gasped, and Pei Ming was like, yes, slay.
Oh, funny.
He's the biggest supporter. He's the biggest shipper.
He's instigator is what
he's an instigator, yes. And Function's like, what? And then Mooching was just like, don't worry about it, Qi Ying. They're just exchanging spiritual power. And then Pei Ming goes along with it. And then Function's like, you don't actually believe that, do you? Dumbass. The sillies. The sillies. Okay, heat up your food.
Heat up my food.
Heat up your food, bitch.